everybody, welcome into a Wednesday edition of Ask Mike. I'm still tired from the regional. Mike, how you feeling?
I think I'm recovered, in a lot better mood because the fans are in a better mood. So
Sure.
Even though we're wearing black, which you would think we would be in mourning because the season is over, they're still going. So
Yes.
This is good.
Yeah, we are happy to be still talking baseball. So let's get right to it. Our first question is from Lonnie Mack, who asks, I wonder how many disbelieving fans there were. We stink and the season is over comments on social media have thumbed a ride back onto the Omaha Hogs bus.
Okay, I don't really look at it that way. I think those fans he's talking about never got off the bus. They were just going, hey, the bus is running out of gas. What are we going to do? And while a lot of the others were going, nah, we're fine. No, we're fine. Look, here's the thing. You got these two parts of the fan base, and one part calls the other part sunshine pumpers. They never get mad about anything, and everything is okay. And honestly, you know who a lot of these people are? They are fans that have mingled with the parents of players on the concourse at Baum and at games and on the road and have gotten to know them. So when you know somebody's parents and then you kind of get to know the player themselves, and so you're going to take these negative comments more personally than you would if you didn't know any of these. They're just players. They're Razorbacks, but they're players. So those people are all very positive. But then you got the other people, and the sunshine pumpers are taking shots at these haters. They're supposedly haters simply because they make comments. And to me, again, they're like people on the bus going, hey, the bus is running out of gas. And there's people up front, no, it's not. I can see the gas gauge. It's okay. And I have faith in this bus driver. So the point is, the ride was rough. It looked like it was running out of gas, but it wasn't because they had a reserve tank that we didn't know about, and now everything's okay again, and the two sides are back on the same page. And the only people that aren't on the bus weren't on the bus in the first place, and those are the really nasty people that send nasty emails because that's just what they do. They're looking for somebody to send a nasty email or a nasty message to, and we don't care about them. We just go over there and go away. So hopefully the bus is running and it's all the way to Chapel Hill, and then it'll turn around and go to Omaha, and everything will be fine, and they're all on the bus together.
Yeah. I like this bus analogy.
Yeah, they're on.
Well done.
Well, he started it with the bus.
I'm telling you, I could picture
like they
it.
got off the bus. Now I want back on the bus. No, they were always on the bus.
Were you ever a safety patrol?
No. No, we didn't even have that. We just walked across the street and looked, hey, watch out, kid. You're going to get run over. We didn't have crosswalks.
I was just curious.
Town was too small.
Okay. Alex for Hogs 88. I will admit that I was not very hopeful about the Diamond Hogs after seeing inconsistency that really concerned me throughout the season. Is he one of the guys saying bus out of gas? I'm also proud of the fresh fight in the team this weekend. Woo pig suey, baby. Now let's beat the Tar Heels.
Yeah, so this is an example of what I'm talking about. He never got off the bus. He was just yelling, hey, this stinks. And now he's happy again. And so we all should be happy, right?
Yeah, I hope so. Texoma Hog wants to know, how cool was it to watch Mr. Twinkle Toes go from tippy-toeing through the tulips between second and third to smashing his batting helmet in the dugout after the beatdown Hagen Smith put on him?
Okay, the Twinkle Toes is Rock Ruggiero.
Yes.
Really cool name. He's a really good player, and he had like 1 million home runs and 1 million RBIs, and he was terrorizing Arkansas the whole time. But the thing was, he forgot this thing called what goes around comes around. It can always come back on you. And here's the thing. He did all this damage to Arkansas, and he had this great season. But you know what even Oklahoma State fans are going to remember about him? He's the dude that struck out with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 8th with a chance to put them up with Arkansas just having 3 more at-bats. The season came down to him. All of the good that he did, whatever it was, it just kind of went flush with that, because what did he do? It was like, you know, in the movie The Natural, remember the whammer, when the Natural struck out the whammer? Well, the Natural in this case was Hagen Smith, and he struck out the whammer Ruggiero, who just went down on one knee, and there's that video. And so Razorback fans are having a great time on Twitter composing these pictures. So you got him, looked like to me he was going through a cow pasture trying not to step on a cow patty, but he was tiptoeing, and he's doing that, and some of them have little I don't know, fairy things around him and all this weird stuff. But they have that, and then they have the thing that ESPN showed where after he struck out, he went in the dugout and slammed his helmet down, and then others have this thing where apparently after the game was over, he was just leaning over the edge of the dugout on that little shelf going, ugh. So you got to remember that as a player. All of the good can go away if you do something really weird, and aren't we lucky that Dave Van Horn doesn't have those kind of players? They don't do embarrassing things like that.
Yeah, no. DeWitt Razorback says, I can't remember ever watching a regional that felt like this one. With all of the scoring and momentum changes, it felt more like watching a UFC fight than a baseball tournament. Where does this rank among your favorite regional victories?
You know, a small part of it is the favorite, and that's the part where this team went in there with a lot of questions, and you could tell this whole thing was weighing on them, and we didn't know what was going to happen, and the season could just end with a whimper or a thud. And then to see them do what they did and come back, and I don't know if you noticed this, but what I thought to myself when it was over, and we're kind of above the third base dugout where the Razorbacks were, they didn't do anything weird like run out and dogpile or act crazy in front of the Oklahoma State fans or gesture or do anything like that. They kind of came together as a group and they were just hugging each other. And the image I will always have, two images. Hagen Smith, all of these times in the last month or so, when he's gone in for an inning or two and walked a bunch of guys and given up 3 or 4 runs, and then he comes out and you see his head down and he goes into the dugout, and you have that image, and then you have the image after the game where they're all hugging him and surrounding him, and he's happy, and all of them are happy. So that part of this regional was one of the best I've ever seen. The regional itself, as you know, I hated it. I hated the stupid double-digit runs every time we turn around, everybody hitting home runs, walking guys, hitting batters, games that never ended. Sunday, there was 9.5 hours of baseball. There was like 60-something runs or something scored. I'm like, are you nuts? This is not good baseball. This is cause you to just want to run out and jump in a ditch or something, or get on the people kept driving by that stadium and just thumb a ride and get on and get out of there. So that part of it was not good. It was also a strange, you know, you go to so many bomb regionals and then you're at one of those, and it just was wonky about, in a lot of ways. They sell these standing room only tickets. You stand behind a line on the concourse and you're looking out over this thing, and you got people in front of you that have seats, but there's alcohol right there. You just turn around and take 6 steps and there's this big thing and you can buy a bunch of beer and stuff. Well, you know what you had? You had a mix of Razorback fans and Oklahoma State fans drinking, and guess what? You had cops running around all over the place. Like, I got to break this up. I got to prevent this. And they did a good job of preventing nothing escalating, but they had to boot people out, including one guy that we saw who was an Arkansas fan who got kicked out but then came back later. So
he was exhausted. That
part of it was kind of, I didn't like that. That doesn't go on at bomb. And then there was and a guy explained this to me, an Oklahoma State fan who is a regular. He said, look, don't confuse those people with those concourse tickets with the rest of us, because in a regular season game, we don't even fill up the seats. So you don't have any of those standing room only things. You can come in there and buy a ticket and sit somewhere. But he said for this, especially for the Sunday game, which was pretty full, they had them back there, but he said those aren't baseball fans. They're just fans. And so they don't know baseball. We had one guy, I saw one guy back there, and he was trying to lecture Arkansas fans on he acted like he was an usher. You can't stand there. You have to move over there. And I finally said to him, are you an usher? And he said, no. And I said, well, if you have a problem with where they are, go get an usher. You're not the usher. And I probably shouldn't have done that, but I just thought, what is wrong with you? Why are you having to tell these people what to do? Just watch the game. You didn't get hired to tell people where to sit. So I didn't like all of that. So what is my favorite regional? I think Arkansas's first, well, let's go back. Frank Broyles said he built bomb. When he built bomb, everybody said there was too many seats. Now that sounds crazy now, because there was only about 5,000 to 6,000 seats in the beginning. And everybody said, well, they won't fill that up. And he said, this is built for a regional. We're building this for a regional. We've never had one. We want regionals. So the first time they had one in the late 90s, they lost. So it was like, what? you want regionals, but you don't. You're better off going on the road. We go on the road all the time and go to Omaha. Now we have one here, and we don't go to Omaha. That's terrible. So then in 2004, Van Horn's here, and they're the #1 seed in the Fayetteville Regional, and Wichita State's the 2, and they lose to Wichita State in game 2. So now they've got to win 3 games. So they got to beat whoever won the other game. Then they've got to come back and beat Wichita State twice. And in the first of those 2 games, there were several pitches in that game where Arkansas was down to its last strike. If this guy strikes out or if he's out, the season's over. And then that guy, Brady Toops, hit a grand slam home run. And that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. It's still the #1 memory, so that is my favorite regional.
I love it. I love it. All right. Ura Woods wants to know, do you know anything about a Razorback fan at the regional who kept making crazy predictions that turned out to be true? Van Horn said something about it after the game.
Yeah, we both know. In fact, he had a standing room only ticket with his wife.
No, well, they had seats. But they were sitting with us because it was so hot on Monday.
Okay.
And they were in the sun, so they were standing in the shade, and then they ended up just hanging out with us.
And Mommy here.
But so he had been standing up around the concourse with their daughter Harper, and so they were there for every game too. And so after the first game, I saw Harper all the time, and then I eventually held Harper for a while.
Yeah,
she got to hang out with me a little bit.
Babysitter.
Yeah.
Okay, so I first noticed him because I would get up periodically and walk around.
Yeah.
I first noticed him in that first Oklahoma State game when Arkansas got down by 5 runs, and it looked like they were going to get blown out.
Yeah.
And everybody's upset back there, all those Hog fans, crap, our pitching's terrible again, and they get all negative. And he goes, they're fixing to score a bunch of runs. And I turned around and said, like when? And he said, like now. And then all of a sudden, boom, they scored a bunch of runs. And then Oklahoma State got up again, and then they came back again, and they won. That was that game. They won 20-12 or whatever. So he was right about that. But I thought, oh, he just got lucky. So then the next time, and he said other things over the next 2 days, but the next time I remember is in that Monday game when Arkansas is up by 2 runs. But now Vermillion has to go to the dugout, and they got to figure out who they're bringing in. And I'm going, who's he bringing in? And I see it's Hagen Smith, and I turn to you, and I went, uh-oh, the game is over. This guy hasn't pitched well in a month. He can't throw strikes. It's in his head. How can he get these guys out? And there was a runner on first with nobody out, and Arkansas is up by 2. So right off the bat, they're trying to move the guy from first to second. And Caden Wallace had that great throw where he nails the guy. And so it didn't do him any good. It just gave an out. So now he's got 1 out that he didn't even have to work for. But then he eventually loads the bases with 2 outs. And I turned to you and I said, I told you, grand slam, grand slam. Well, what happened was the guy we're talking about, when I started saying all that, he said, no, you don't understand. This guy's a natural closer. And I'm going, what are you talking about? He hasn't closed. He said, I'm telling you, he's not a starting pitcher. They've had him in the wrong role. He is a natural closer. And he started going into some technical explanations. And then what does he do? He gets them out of that inning by striking out 2, including Rock Ruggiero. And then he comes back and gets them out. And so the game's over. And I'm going, wow. And he made one other prediction, if you remember. Remember, in the top of the 9th, after the Ruggiero strikeout, I stood up and I said, well, they still need some more runs because they got to take the pressure off of him, Hagen Smith. And he goes, they're going to score 3. I'm telling you 3. He held up 3 fingers. Well, they scored 2, so he's pretty close. So we get to the post-game presser, and I got to tell Van Horn about the guy that says that Hagen Smith is a natural closer.
Yeah.
And he goes, you get his name? And I go, no, I don't have his name. And he goes, well, you should have because I might hire him as a coach because he's right. And then he proceeds to tell us that in fall ball, they actually had him as a closer, and he was terrific, but they had to move him into the starting lineup or into the starting rotation because of Peyton Paulette getting hurt before the season was started. And so now it looks like to me he's back in that role again, right?
Maybe. Yeah,
so
maybe.
That's the story of the guy, and I will tell you this. We'll figure out who he is.
His name is Ryan
But
Meeks.
do you know his full name?
Ryan Meeks.
Well, let's find him.
Before I left, because I was hanging out with Harper,
So you're good.
I got his wife's number.
Okay.
So I can shoot a text.
We need to do a story on him and his amazing predictions.
Okay, I'm going to tell him.
He, to me, is the typical Arkansas baseball fan because they know baseball. They're not like the Oklahoma State goobers that are back there going, "You're in the wrong seat. You need to move back."
Oh.
He's a guy that he didn't tell anybody what to do. He told me where I was wrong, you know.
And they were very, very nice.
He's a great guy.
Razor Runner says, around the beginning of the current baseball season, you gave your prediction that the Hogs would not win the SEC, but would go to the College World Series and win it all. And so far, you're so good. Wow, Mike, I don't remember that, but is that still your prediction?
I'd like to take credit for that, but if you'll remember, and I don't know if you were on the show that day, but I said, look, I don't do predictions because they're ridiculous. Anytime somebody makes a prediction and they're right, it's just because they got lucky. If you actually looked at all of their predictions, they wouldn't be any better than anybody else. So I said, look, I don't do predictions, but it's Ask Mike, and you asked me to do it, so I'll do it. And I just, in my head, I thought, okay, I'm going to throw out the opposite scenario from the year before. Okay, this year, they're not number one at any point. They don't win the SEC. They don't win the SEC tournament, but they do win the regional and super regional, and they go to Omaha and win it all. And I guess technically it still could happen. And think about this, if it does happen, and I'm not claiming credit for it, I just threw it out there. What if Tennessee doesn't win their regional? You know what that would be? Tennessee has become Arkansas from last year, and Arkansas would have become Mississippi State, who went 2 and out and then went to Omaha and won it all.
Yeah.
So you could have these weird role reversals.
Yeah, that would be funky, wouldn't it?
It would.
How many Notre Dame fans are out there right now? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Where am I? Just make sure. All right, there it is. H. McCamish wants to know what happened with Connor Nolan. He looked like a different guy against Grand Canyon, and they are a very good hitting team.
Yeah, I think it was a bunch of things. First of all, I think he had 6 days rest instead of typical 4. He didn't pitch, I think, but 3 innings that previous week, so he was rested. And then when they got back early because they went 2 and out, and Dave Van Horn said they got back Friday night, and he told everybody, take Saturday and Sunday off and don't come in here and do something completely different from baseball that you like. And Connor played golf, and he said it helped him clear his head. But I also think there was something else, and that was what Dave Van Horn said, and Connor was right next to him when he said it at the press conference on Thursday right after they worked out. We were at the practice, and then we go in there. And Dave Van Horn was asked by Bob Holt, the season, and he's asking about what stupid stuff that happened, going downhill. So he said something about, so we did this and we did that, and he's talking about what happened before. Big whoop, or something like that. Whoopee.
Whoopee.
Whoopee. But he said,
who cares?
When you get selected to a regional, you walk through the door and you close the door behind you, and all that stuff behind you is gone. He said, nobody here has an ERA, nobody here has a batting average or a fielding percentage. We start clean. And Connor's sitting right there, and then he was asked later on about how he thought about being there, and he said, well, first I wasn't sure because every regional I've been to is at Baum, and I thought I wouldn't like this, but he said I got over here and I thought, wow, we're going to be the bad guys. We're going to be the team nobody wants, the local team doesn't like us. So I like that. So I think all of that factored in, and he definitely was different. He pitched a great game, and so did Cole Ramage in relief.
Yeah, he did. All right, Mousetown said, some seem to think it was funny that a Hog fan made up a story on the internet about Tennessee's catcher testing positive for steroids and was out of the tournament. Also, that the entire Tennessee team was going to get tested by the NCAA. I didn't think it was funny at all. What about you?
Yeah, I didn't like it. And the thing that made it worse was that Troy Eklund, who's a really good guy, ex-Razorback, who normally does the Arkansas games on ESPN3 as the color commentator, he was doing that. And I don't know what happened. He apparently either heard about it or read it himself and thought it was real. And so he kind of said something about it, and then we heard about it, and then because he said it, we're like going, hey, it must have happened, but, we still didn't say anything about it when we went live. We were going to check it out. And then once you started going on Twitter and Facebook, you realized nobody else was saying it. Okay, so then Clay Travis of Outkick to whatever he is, he hates ESPN anyway, and I do too, but for different reasons. He starts saying that the catcher and his family are going to sue ESPN because ESPN said this. No, Troy Ekland said it. He was technically working for ESPN as a contract guy. But come on, it's not ESPN's fault. That was just a weird deal. And he ended up apologizing. Anybody that knows him knows he's a good guy. And I think everybody accepted that. The thing that nobody's talking about is the goober on the internet that did this. Now, here's the way he's described to me by people that pay attention to him. I don't follow him, so I didn't know anything about him. Oh, we all know he's a troll. He does this stuff all the time. We just blow him off. I said, okay, fine, that's an excuse, because somebody that doesn't know what he's doing and sees it might believe it. They might not be internet savvy. I don't know how you feel about this. There's probably nothing that can be done, but to me, if you're going to sue somebody, sue him. He's the one that said it, knowing it's complete baloney. It's one thing to make up a joke, but when you make up a joke about a guy using steroids, and we know it's true that he's not playing, he's not scheduled to play that day, so you just come in there and say, oh, it's because he tested positive for steroids, and now the whole team's going to get tested positive. I just don't like that.
I think you just need to be careful. I think, unfortunately, you just got to be very careful with what you say, and then you do have to understand and know that when you do post things, because you do have a following of sorts, whatever that following may be, things do have consequences. And so the jokes aside, that they say it's all fun and games until it gets serious, and that kind of is that line.
I think you sort of have to know what you're joking about. You can't joke about somebody supposedly testing positive for steroids, an athlete. That's not a joke if you make anybody believe it. So anyway, everybody was hurling comments and accusations at ESPN, and we're in a weird position of defending ESPN, which I don't normally do, but it wasn't ESPN. Honestly, it was that goofball that put that stuff up, and I saw it. It was all in caps, and it was like, from sources, blah, 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 and he says what happened, and I'm like, oh, good grief.
Yeah. All right, Lanny says, I thought Tennessee had cleaned up its act, but here we go again. One of their players hit a big double in the regional final against Georgia Tech, and it sure looked like he flipped off the outfielder who couldn't make the catch.
I
haven't seen this.
Yeah, that guy's name is Jordan Beck. Here's the thing. If you look at the video let's go back. Tennessee has a history this year of really getting mad if somebody either beats them or is beating them. It's like hey, you can't do that. We're Tennessee. We don't get beat or we don't get behind. And so, as nearly as I can figure out, they were just mad because it was the championship game of their regional, and Georgia Tech was ahead of them, and it was like dicey. Well, what, you're going to get mad at them because they're ahead of you? So he hits a double, a two-run double that drives in the tying runs, and he goes to second. And that's as he's going between first and second. The guy out in the outfield that the ball goes over his head, he turns and runs to get it. And he appears to be flipping that guy off like, hey, to heck with you. Look what I just did to you. Okay. Obviously, Vitello he clearly hasn't solved this problem. The AD clearly hasn't done anything about it, and Tennessee fans like it. We've established that. They like this sort of in-your-face mentality. Is anybody going to do anything about it? I don't know the rules on these things for umpires, but to me the answer is there. You look at all the video reviews they do. Can't they do a video review and they see clearly what he's doing and they go, okay, here's the thing.
There's a warning.
You drove in the 2 runs before you did that, okay? So they count, you're gone. Go to the dugout. If you would have scored, now you're not. That's drastic, but that's what I would do. I don't even know if there's a way to do that. But to me, if there's not, there ought to be rules in there about things like that. I don't think anything's going to be done by Vitello or their AD because, again, I think that's their image and they like it. So the only other answer is Greg Sankey going to do anything about it from the SEC office? Probably not this year. But I think next year they're going to be on a short leash. This is embarrassing. It's a bad SEC image. And I know what some people are going to say. Come on, sports is a in-your-face thing and it's okay. And no, it's not. Not that. if you are a fan and you want Arkansas to be doing this,
I don't think Arkansas fans would like it much if Grant Morgan would have tackled somebody on the field and stood up and flipped him off as he got off of him, or I don't know, Jalen Williams dunked on Devo Davis dunks on someone and turns around and flips them. Like, again, like, put yourself in Arkansas's shoes a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people would appreciate those players doing that.
You know, Nolan had a kind of a reputation of, we're bad guys, but they didn't do anything like that.
And kind of like, unlike football and basketball where there are, you get technicals or you can get fouls like that. Devo Davis, that one call where he was hanging on the rim too long. And, there's nothing really like that in baseball.
Because you don't have the kind of face-to-face contact that you do in those other sports. But there's still some chippiness now. We saw it with Chris Lanzilli and that first baseman with Oklahoma State. They were kind of bumping each other.
A little chippy, and then that one time the umpire came in and was like, you're getting a warning or that you're done.
And so there should be more of that. That's what I'm saying. Umpires should start getting involved in this stuff in Tennessee.
Yeah. Okay. Arky Redneck says, maybe Michael Turner should hire Ruskin as his press agent. Kidding. Clearly Turner was on a mission in Stillwater.
Okay.
I have an opinion about this, but you didn't ask me.
Here's my take on this. I don't think, first of all, you made this point. It's not like Turner suddenly became a great player, and he wasn't. He was very good. That was the worst thing. It's bad to call somebody an ass or whatever he did. That's not good. But the worst thing that he did was say that he was no good when he is. And that's where he got defended. I mean, fans came in and defended him. Now, this is what I think happened. I don't think Michael Turner played better because of Derek Ruskin. I don't think that's what his motivation was. Good players know that they're good, and they're not just somebody saying you're not any good is not going to change their opinion of themselves. Here's what I think happened. You have this kid that's new to the program. He was at a school before where they didn't have a big fan base, and so he's not used to the fans getting all upset because the season's not going well. And maybe he thought it was a little weird, and he commented on it. Hey, wait a minute, we're having to deal with this, because that's what he said. He was talking about after the SEC tournament about we got to pull together. Some of these fans are doing that. So I think Michael Turner was kind of looking at the differences in what he was experiencing now and before, and he was like, oh. But then when this happened, and he saw all of these fans, that some of whom had been negative, suddenly turn around and jump to his defense and say, hey, you can't say he's a rent-a-player. He's one of our players. You can't say that. And I think when he saw how everybody stepped in and defended him, he wasn't reacting to Derek Ruskin. He was reacting to, hey, these fans really, I like them. They like me. I don't want to disappoint them. I think that's what it was.
Yeah, but again, it is laughable and inexcusable to me to even give him an ounce of credit for anything that this baseball team is doing right now. Because I promise you, the motivation in that room, like Dave Van Horn says, we shut the door and we open up a brand new one. Their motivation is getting to Omaha and winning a national title, not trying to prove people wrong or whatever. And again, Michael Turner didn't suck before. He didn't suck after. And there was nothing about whatever was said about him by a certain someone who does not need to have an ounce of my energy should have credit for it at all.
Yeah,
and I mean, it's one of those things. It's a trigger thing for me because it's absolutely not cool in my book at all, at all.
So we've solved that.
Yeah. Susie Blackwell says, I was heartbroken when the softball team lost to Texas, but seeing what they are doing in Oklahoma City makes me feel better. Looks like Arkansas ran into a Texas team that has great momentum.
That's exactly what happened. Let's say Texas had played this way the entire season. They would have had their own super regional, and Arkansas would not have played them until Oklahoma City. This happens. I mean, honestly, that's what happened to Arkansas last year in baseball. They ran into a North Carolina team that didn't have a great season, but they got hot at the right time, and Arkansas was just unfortunately had them in their super regional. So if they didn't, I think they would have gone to Omaha. So it's the same thing. They have nothing to be ashamed of. They had a great season. They did a lot of stuff they've never done before, but the best thing they did was they established themselves as a happening program on campus. Now people are going to start going to those games. Now media people like me will go, oh yeah, I'll go over there and shoot some softball, or I'll go over there and watch. because it's become a deal. It's become a thing with energy and fans, and there's going to be more people over there. And although I have to tell you, they're not going to add more seats next year. I've already asked. They don't have time. Maybe some point in the future. I think the big first thing they want to do is build a new locker room over there for the softball and soccer, because they're both good programs. But yeah, the softball has become a sport on campus.
Welcome aboard. It's fun, isn't it? Those
good.
games are fun. Yeah.
Good.
All right, Wild Hogger Man wants to know, what did you think about Pittman's new contract? I still think he's underpaid if Whittle Wayne Kiffin, as you call him, makes $2 million more.
Well, maybe Whittle Wayne is overpaid. Here's the thing. He's getting 7 or whatever, and Pittman's getting 5. But the thing I loved about Hunter Yurachek when he got hired, now think about the mess this guy inherited. They had just hired Chad Morris and given him this goofy contract with a big buyout again, which is what the mistake they made with Bielema. And I had I remember telling somebody, I don't think you can do that anymore. You just got to give people big buyouts, because if you don't, they'll just go somewhere else. It's universal. But apparently there's some bad ADs out there, because what Yurachek said was, when he was asked about it, I favor performance-based contracts and those that work the other way. I'll give you this much if you do this. I'll give you this much more. But if you do this less, you're going to have a smaller buyout. And yesterday, Sam Pittman said that's the contract that he has. Now, so here's the genius of Yurachek. He not only lays out a better idea, but the flaw in it was my question: who are you going to get to accept that as a coach? He found a guy that liked it and would do it and plays into it. So I don't know if this is going to become a thing, but if it does or doesn't, people are going to start looking around sometime and go, what is wrong with us giving these? I mean, look what they did to Brian Kelly or whoever coming in from Notre Dame. Who's the LSU guy going, here's millions and jillions of dollars. And A&M's Borky Bork or whatever. Jimbo, here's money. And and then if they screw up, it's like, here's some more money. Here's some more money. I don't like that. And Yurachek is the anti-give you money for being bad AD.
You're a fan of that.
That's good.
All right, that's it. Good questions today.
Yeah,
this
we
week.
liked it.
Appreciate it. Of course, if you have a question for Mike, you can ask on the Ask Mike forum. You can send it in to his Facebook or Twitter, or email us as well. Get your questions in. We'll talk about them next week. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you then.